Tonight, the Supreme Court stands at a crossroads, facing a pivotal question that could reshape the landscape of American rights. Can the government strip someone's constitutional right to own a gun simply because they use drugs, even if that use is legal in some states? This isn't just a legal debate confined to the walls of the courthouse. It's a decision that will impact millions of Americans from all walks of life and could fundamentally redefine the boundaries of the Second Amendment for generations to come. The justices must carefully weigh the need for public safety against the deeply held individual right to bear arms, a right enshrined in our Constitution and fiercely protected by many Americans. This case is personal, not just theoretical. It's about real people, real families, and the very real consequences that will ripple through communities across the nation. The outcome will shape the future of gun laws in America, affecting how we define freedom and responsibility. The recent conviction of the president's son, Hunter Biden, under this very law, has brought the issue into sharp focus, highlighting its real-world impact and sparking heated debate across the country. The Supreme Court's ruling will clarify, perhaps for the first time, who truly qualifies as a responsible citizen under the law and what standards must be met to exercise this fundamental right. Is breaking a law, like using marijuana, which is now legal in many states, enough to lose your rights, or does the Constitution demand a higher threshold before such a fundamental liberty can be taken away? The world is watching closely. America's unique and often controversial relationship with firearms is under the microscope, and the outcome of this case could influence debates about gun rights far beyond our borders. Will the court continue expanding gun rights, as it has in recent years, or will it carve out new space for regulation in the name of public safety, setting a precedent that could affect countless future cases? For every American, this case represents a defining moment in the ongoing story of our rights and responsibilities, a moment that will be studied, debated, and remembered for years to come. The answer the justices deliver will echo far beyond the courtroom, shaping the legal and cultural landscape of our nation. The stakes could not be higher. The future of the Second Amendment and what it means to be an American is on the line. At the center of this legal storm is a federal law, Section 922G(3), a statute that has quietly shaped the intersection of drug policy and gun rights for decades. This law makes it a felony for anyone considered an unlawful drug user to possess firearms, regardless of the circumstances or the type of drug involved. Passed in an era when the war on drugs dominated headlines, lawmakers believed it would keep guns out of the hands of those whose judgment might be impaired, aiming to protect the public from potential harm. But the landscape has shifted dramatically. Today, marijuana is legal for medical or recreational use in most states, even as it remains a federal crime. This contradiction has only grown more pronounced as public attitudes toward cannabis have evolved. As a result, millions of Americans now face a difficult choice, whether to exercise their right to use state-legal cannabis or to retain their Second Amendment rights to own a firearm. For many, this is a deeply personal and often confusing dilemma. The law's broad and sweeping reach is now facing its toughest challenge ever, as courts and citizens alike question whether it still makes sense in today's world. Inspired by a landmark 2022 Supreme Court decision, lower courts have begun to scrutinize whether there's any historical tradition of disarming people simply for using a substance, especially one that is legal in so many states. Many judges and legal scholars have concluded that this ban is a modern invention, not something the nation's founders would have recognized or intended when drafting the Constitution. This growing split among the courts has made Supreme Court review not just likely but inevitable, as the nation seeks clarity on this contentious issue. The government insists the law is vital for public safety, arguing it prevents dangerous situations, but challengers argue it's outdated, unfair, and unconstitutional in a modern America. The outcome of this case will set the rules for future gun control debates, shaping how the nation balances individual rights and collective safety for years to come. This is about more than just one law. It's about the future of the Second Amendment, the evolving meaning of public safety, and the rights of millions of Americans. The stakes could not be higher, and the nation is watching. This legal battle centers on Ali Daniel Hamani, a young man prosecuted for owning a gun while regularly using marijuana, a substance that is legal for medical use in many states. Hamani had no violent history and never used his firearm in a crime. His record shows a life led without aggression, raising questions about the fairness of his prosecution. His case asks a fundamental question: is being a drug user enough to erase your Second Amendment rights, rights that are deeply embedded in the American Constitution? His lawyers argue the law is too broad, punishing millions without proof of actual danger. They emphasize that the law should differentiate between nonviolent users and those who pose a real threat. Someone using medical marijuana for health reasons is treated the same as a violent drug offender, a comparison that many find unjust. The defense insists that the government must prove someone is a threat, not just assume it based on their choice of medication. Prosecutors counter that drug use is linked to reckless behavior, justifying a ban for public safety. They argue that the potential for harm is enough to warrant caution. They see it as a preventative measure, not a punishment, aiming to protect the public from unforeseen dangers. The Supreme Court must now decide, does Himani's right to self-defense outweigh the government's interest in public safety? This decision could redefine the balance between individual rights and collective security. The facts are clear, making this a crucial test of the law's limits. The outcome will resonate beyond this case, influencing future legal interpretations. The ruling will set a precedent for hundreds of similar cases each year, shaping the legal landscape for gun ownership and drug use. One man's fight has become a defining moment for every American gun owner, a symbol of the ongoing debate over rights and regulations. The future of gun control hangs in the balance, with the potential to alter the course of American legal history. To understand this case, look back to 2022 and the Supreme Court's Bruen decision. Bruen changed everything. Courts must now judge gun laws by whether they fit America's historical tradition. If a law didn't exist in the 1700s or 1800s, it's likely unconstitutional. This new test made it much harder for the government to defend gun regulations. Legal challenges exploded, including against the ban on gun possession for drug users. Challengers argue there's no tradition of disarming people for private substance use. The Supreme Court must now apply its own new rule to the federal ban. Is it like old laws against arming drunkards, or a modern overreach? The answer will test the limits of the Bruen Revolution. The stakes for gun rights have never been higher. After Bruen, lower courts split over the drug user gun ban, creating legal chaos. Some upheld the law, others struck it down, making a Supreme Court ruling essential. The government argues there's a tradition of disarming those deemed dangerous or unvirtuous, citing colonial laws against loyalists and drunkards. They say the modern ban is a logical extension of this principle, but several appeals courts, including the conservative Fifth Circuit, disagreed. They found historical laws targeted dangerous behavior, not mere status as a user. Without a strong historical precedent, they ruled the law fails the Bruen test. This split made a unified Supreme Court decision necessary. The justices will now decide, does public safety justify this ban, or is it an unconstitutional relic? The outcome will set a single rule for the nation. The case may hinge on how the Supreme Court interprets history. The government points to old laws disarming untrustworthy groups, including drunkards, arguing the founders reserved gun rights for the virtuous. They claim the modern ban on drug users follows this tradition. Impaired judgment equals higher risk. Challengers say these old laws targeted public intoxication or threats, not private substance use. There's no direct historical parallel to a total ban based on drug use alone. They argue the government is stretching history to fit modern policy. The justices must decide, are these old laws truly analogous? Is the ban a faithful application of history or a novel restriction? Their answer will shape all future Second Amendment cases. The court's role as historian has never been more important. The Supreme Court's decision will have immediate, sweeping effects. If the law is struck down, hundreds of federal cases could be dismissed and past convictions challenged. It would signal that the government can't restrict gun rights based on group status alone. This could spark new challenges to other gun bans, like those for nonviolent felons. If the law is upheld, it's a major win for gun control, affirming the government's power to disarm those it deems irresponsible. Millions, especially marijuana users in legal states, would remain barred from gun ownership. The ruling will shape public safety, liberty, and the definition of a right. The consequences will be felt nationwide. The stakes, more guns in the hands of drug users, or continued restrictions for millions. The court's decision will define the next era of gun law. Legal experts across the spectrum are watching closely. Many believe the conservative majority may be skeptical of the federal ban. Some argue that equating old laws against public drunkenness with a modern ban on private drug use is a historical stretch. Supporters counter that the Second Amendment has always allowed for reasonable exceptions. The government's best argument: habitual drug users aren't law-abiding, responsible citizens. Experts highlight the contradiction: millions comply with state marijuana laws, but risk federal felony charges if they own a gun. The Supreme Court can resolve this glaring inconsistency. All agree, this is a major test for the court's new approach to the Second Amendment. The decision will reveal how committed the justices are to their history-focused method. The future of gun rights and regulation hangs in the balance. This case is about more than guns and drugs. It's about who we are as a nation. The Supreme Court's decision will force us to confront the balance between liberty and security. If the ban falls, it affirms individual rights but demands new approaches to public safety. Lawmakers may need to focus on behavior, not status, and find new ways to prevent violence. If the ban stands, it affirms the government's power to regulate gun ownership for the common good. It would set a precedent for other targeted gun control measures. The outcome will shape how we define responsible gun ownership. The legal answer will come from the court, but the cultural debate will continue. This is the work of democracy, debating where to draw the line between personal choice and public threat. The path forward requires respect, reason, and a shared commitment to a safe and free society. The Supreme Court's ruling is just the beginning. The conversation about rights and responsibilities is far from over.